everybody. Welcome to the Quantum Coalescence podcast, hosted by Jen, Missy, and myself, Laina. Today, we are discussing the practice of charging crystals, and we may get into the notion of using crystals in your practice in general. But we're really going to be taking a peek at the question, is it necessary to charge them at all? And what's the difference between cleansing/clearing and charging? One of the things that we're going to discuss today is this quote that I found. To be honest with you, I just did a quick search online, and this was one of the first articles that came up, which again is something that I would like to talk about as well, the notion of researching. So this is a short passage from a blog entry on crystaljoys.com, and it reads as follows. The positive energy crystals emit requires time and attention. In order to effectively improve different areas of your life with crystals, you will need to charge your crystals to give you the positivity and healing energy you need. With many different types of stones that provide a wide range of powerful energies, be sure to pick the right ones for you. Whether you are looking to release negative energy from your crystals, or you are looking to promote healing for your body, whatever the case may be, always be prepared and recharge your crystals often. So, ladies, let's chat.
Sorry. You guys know this one kind of like, I'm really excited about this topic because this one gets me a little bit. It gets me kind of fired up in a way or what, but yeah.
I think what gets you is anyone who talks that you have to do anything a certain specific way. I think that's the underlying issue there for you.
You're right.
Yeah. That's why that passage stood out to me. One of the things that we want to mention today before we really dive into this is that don't take anything as an absolute. When it comes to anything spiritual, whether it's working with cards, herbs, people, singing bowls, whatever it is, remember that you are not in and of yourself lacking. These items, these tools, these energies are available on this 3D planet to assist us and help us. But it's not necessarily that we have to have a piece of carnelian in order to progress and heal ourselves. That we have to have a piece of quartz in order to amplify our intentions. It's there to help and assist and kind of maybe speed up the process possibly and to enlighten, but you are not lacking because you don't have a certain stone. To me, that's what stood out there, is the idea that, well, you, in order to heal, you have to have this.
So on the flip side of that, I do think that crystals in general do kind of allow for newbies to experience our world a little bit without being too freaked out. I just wanted to throw that in there, that if it's hard at first to discern kind of what I said, my experience was a practitioner at a expo that I went to, like I was young. I think I might have been in my late teens, and her perspective colored my opinion of crystals for quite some time, like way up into my 40s. So I just simply disregarded them because I didn't want to have that relationship that she described with a crystal. And I've heard people you guys know in general, I'm not a crystal person. I tried, everybody talked about moldavite for so long. And I was like, oh, I got to get me a piece of that because I want to see, and people were like, you can't even hold it in my hand. And I was like, oh, I want to touch it. Because if someone says, oh, no, I can't do that, I gotta play that game. So it did nothing for me. I didn't have the same experiences that other people had with it. So I was a little disappointed, but my point was, I think that depending on how you get exposed, I would say find a reliable source of information. And if it resonates right from the get-go, you're gonna, of course, dive into it. But I think that what we're talking about charging and clearing crystals is probably for someone who's more committed, maybe, to their crystal practice and what they do with their crystals.
Absolutely.
Good point.
I just don't want anyone to feel bad about, not having a certain crystal or for using them
Mhm.
at first when you don't know or using them at all. No shame. No
You
shame
know,
in this game.
that's a good point, is feeling like you have to have the physical item to be able to work with it. So at its base, crystals are of the earth. It grows just like, or forms rather than grows, has a crystalline structure, has a certain pattern internally, which would be equate to what our DNA, if you want to think of it that way. It has its own formation, which holds its own vibration, which is why part of the healing that it does is that vibration either aligns or resonates with you and what you need. So that's the healing work there, in my opinion. And then because of that, because it's a vibration, just like, let's say, spirit animals or spirit allies, or plant allies or whatever, crystals can be the same. Like if I am tapping into the vibration of rose quartz and I know I need it, but I don't physically have a piece of rose quartz, you can tap into that vibration and access it as if it were an ally, a spirit. The energy of it will still reach you whether you physically have it or not. It will become easier to do that if you have a piece, work with it, know the feeling and have that relationship with it. And over time it becomes easier. But just because you don't have a piece of that vibration physically doesn't mean you can't access it. So I like the thought that because of this, they can also be an ally, much like we use other tools or energies or entities or vibrations as allies in that sense too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point, Jen, because if you are familiar with something like oracle decks, you will find decks out there that have, crystals as either the theme or incorporated in some of the cards. So you may pull an oracle card for rose quartz or black obsidian. Is the point to go out and get a piece of black obsidian? No. The point is to discern, okay, well, what is this trying to reveal? Why is it that I should work with this energy that black obsidian has or carries? What is that revealing about myself and my next steps?
Exactly. And that could be used as your healing too, like, actually integrating. And so that kind of leads us maybe into the point of where we'd like to go with this, is that the crystals have its own formation and vibration. It comes to you. I found this, and it really, where I brought this up to you guys, is I was watching TikTok and there was one guy on there just like preaching this concept, like you don't have to charge your crystals, you don't have to program your crystals, they come pre-programmed. You're making it too hard on yourselves. The earth did this for you. It's programmed in its own vibration, and it's coming to you with that vibration,
Right.
because you need it. You attracted that. So you going and say, okay, I got this rose quartz and now I'm going to charge it. In his eyes, you were defeating the purpose of why it was attracted to you in the first place. It already held what you needed. Those stones and crystals are so dense and structured that it has what you need, or has the vibration, and all we have to do is resonate with it on a certain level, marry our vibrations in some way, have a relationship with it, and then you are the more malleable person, or you're the more malleable energy. Our energies are way more flexible, I think, than a lot of these other tools and things that the earth grows, especially, that we change. We're the ones getting programmed. We're the ones shifting to match, and to, again, we're the ones asking for the healing, for instance. Why am I forcing another vibration to change to my intentions? So I think that's kind of the point. I was like, wow, thank God someone's saying this, because yeah, I'm asking for the change. So why am I changing the tool?
He's got a good point. Yeah.
There's also, I really like Judy Hall. So I have a deck by her, and she really talks about the structures as well. And there was a note in one of her oracle decks on page 47 of the guidebook. She writes, I made notes today, guys.
I'm just going to say that for the rest of my life. In page 47 of the guidebook by Missy.
Right.
Sorry.
No, that's great.
The book of Missy.
The book of Missy. Oh, It has a ring to it.
It does.
Let's see. It says we assume that the lattice is just a structure, a framework, and nothing more. Perhaps it should not be surprising to find out that this is not the case at all. The crystal lattice, or structure/form, is indeed the beating heart which provides the background for the coursing energies in more ways than one. And she referenced Don Robbins' The Secret Language of the Stone. So that just kind of, so that it has its own pulse. And the lattice work, the structure, the form, and that's where we bring in. So why, if I charge it or program it to something different, it doesn't feel to be as beneficial.
How can it maintain its true purpose if we are changing it? You know? And we, as something that did come up for me when I was considering this, was plants, animals, and crystals all have the ability to be that pure frequency because they don't have social programming and emotional attachments, things of that nature that cause them to have that 3D paradigm. They're meant to be in this 3D world. They are not holding our 3D human programming. So that's where, to me, that's the difference that comes in.
I like that.
To piggyback off of both of you, one thing that I really wanted to discuss today was the idea that in our modern practice, a lot of people sort of muddy up the difference between cleansing/clearing and programming. In Judy Hall's Encyclopedia of Crystals, to just continue talking about her, because she's a really great authority, I think, in this realm, she talks about crystal cleansing and activating and maintaining your crystals and sort of enhancing their energy. And then it gets into, more about how it aligns with the body. And then it has all sorts of references for different kinds of stones in that book. So it's a great one to refer to. To me, programming and activating are different. I think that TikTok users has a really valid point, Jen, that it already has its crystalline structure and we don't need to put our own influence on it. So programming it really isn't necessary. But then let's talk about, okay, so what happens when we do find a crystal out there and we want to take it home? What do we do then once we're using it?
I think a part of where this comes from, and maybe even with cleansing and charging and programming, or whatever word you want to use, I keep coming to a sense that really it's not about the crystal itself. It's about, it's kind of like when you do a ritual or a spell, for instance. It's for you to align to whatever you are doing. You are setting in the intent. It's a conscious, physical way for you to get into, or doing like a spirit dance, or doing the, chanting or whatever. It's getting you charged up to align with whatever your intent is. So I'm curious that when we say, I'm going to go program my crystal, I'm going to charge it or activate it, it's not really about, the crystal's not going to necessarily be doing anything different. You might be the one though. So me taking that action, maybe it's an activation within self that just aligns you to whatever that vibration or that whatever that crystal is already holding, and just waiting for you to be like, yep, okay, I'm on board, let's do this.
Side note, when you said that about, it's about how the ceremony or whatever aligns with you, I think that could have possibly been where we maybe veered off of the original intention of crystal. Is Christianity is so rooted in this society that we've gotten away from the individual, and we've gotten away from the individual practice in all systemic ways. I don't just mean Christianity, but in education, in the medical industry, in insurance industry. All of those things are very institutionalized and systemic now. And we've gotten away from, what does this mean to me? And when you said that, I was like, oh, I see that in society as well. That's it.
No, totally. That brings up a point that I also wanted to talk about how when you see people on Instagram or Facebook in your witchy groups or whatever you're following, people will be like,
say it. She said this morning, and I was like, this is so great. I'm going to use it for the rest of my life.
Wait. People will say, okay, it's the new moon, it's the full moon. I have to gather all my crystals and I have to clear and I have to charge them under the moon or whatever, or under the sun. And it's like, you don't have to keep up with the spiritual Sallys out there. Do what feels right to you. if that means if that means that you need to take 2 hours to make it a ceremony, and that is what lights your heart on fire, then perfect. If the very thought of gathering all of your stones, because some of us have a lot, and I'm calling out myself there, if the very thought of gathering them all up into one little area and clearing and charging them is just like, oh my God, I'm so tired, I don't want to do that, then don't do that, you know?
They be okay. It'll be okay. Right? Like you'll know. And like I said, I like the point where he said if it fires you up, that's the whole point. It's you are being you're realigning yourself to your practice, whatever it may be, crystals or like otherwise. So you are aligning yourself to what that crystal holds, or what your collection of crystals can do for you. And tending to something is very powerful, magical too. It's showing honor, showing respect. It's aligning you to what they can do for you, giving thanks. So charging and cleansing your tools of any sort is great. You tend to your pets because you love them. You tend to yourself because you love yourself, hopefully. You tend to other people. It makes sense to want to cleanse and tend to your crystals as well. But I think the notion that you are changing it on a vibrational level is false, in my opinion.
I'm interested to hear back from listeners about what their experience with this is. What were you taught? How were you taught? And to also say that there is no, just because this is our opinion, and we three happen to agree, that doesn't necessarily mean that this is the opinion of others. There were older rules that were applicable and assisted humanity at that time. There were different rules, and now the rules are changed and different, and we are different. I think it's, again, I want to just say this is not a shaming thing.
I think that's really cool. Like in the old times. So in my notes here, I don't know if we'll get into it, but where this kind of came from, I had some stuff like from history of where crystal healing has been a thing for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And they created prescriptions or recipes or something to help heal you, or to benefit you in some way. And they figured out what works and what doesn't, just like herbalists. They figure out what works and what doesn't, and what's gonna benefit you, what may harm you or worse. And so we take that information, and with crystals we take it as a hard fast rule. Just like you said, mold of bite for you, Missy, didn't do shit for you but for other people. And right. I wonder if it's sometimes because we know ahead of time what to expect, that placebo effect, and know that this is what this property should be helping with, so then it's easier for me to align that and manifest that internally. Or if it's because I actually felt it. And so that kind of comes to also, like, when you go to a crystal shop or something, did you go with a prescription in mind or a recipe, right, or do you go in just to see what just literally falls into your lap that day?
Right. Well, and also I think it's worth pointing out that using them, again, in conjunction with other work that you might be doing is important, because it took me a while to figure out the reason that I don't respond to crystals is because I am a living, breathing transmuter. So I'm going to transmute naturally energies that get put into my aura, my space. And so I am not going to be as reactive. So depending on how you set up what your pre-incarnation intentions were, you're going to respond differently to a crystal than someone else. I'll never forget Reiki class, that first Reiki class, and they were all talking about crystals and putting the crystals on your chakras, and I was like, I don't feel shit. And I tried to make it funny because that's what I do. Daddy taught me well. You handle life with humor, but I felt bad. I felt like there was something wrong with me that I wasn't responding to, or I couldn't feel this touching my sacral chakra. And it wasn't that way, but it took me 4 years to figure that out. So I just know thyself.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Good point. You might not be a crystal person, and sometimes too, crystal, it's not just the vibrations. Like, also, you have the crystalline structure, but you also have the color. So there's color therapy. So you could use crystals in
You're
different
beautiful.
ways, just because you
Yes.
like them, because they're
Yes.
sparkly and pretty.
That's why
And
I use crystals.
they look good as jewelry, and I like the way it
They're
looks. And that,
sparkly.
that's a healing moment in itself too, bringing you confidence, because you know what, it's pretty, it's blue or purple or sparkles or this or
Right.
that.
Yeah.
If it brings you confidence and makes you feel good, that's just as healing as just putting carnelian on your sacral or whatever the heck it might be.
They are beautiful, and I do enjoy them. I love to look at crystals.
They are beautiful.
It's the fact that earth creates that, it just,
I was
and
gonna
I'm
say,
so
I
like,
get the
it blows my
same
mind.
way, like when you visit local caves and caverns, it's that moment of sort of awe, like, damn, water and dirt and a hole in the ground made this stalactite? What? It's so neat. And
Mhm.
it's a moment for me, like, this is really cool. Again, look what creator did for us. It's a moment to
Mhm.
internally be awestricken. And so when you bring a piece of that home with you, I think it activates that inside you as well.
Absolutely.
Lena, you had a note here, and I didn't know if you wanted to get into this now or not, but I'm bringing it up about just
Okay.
because. So, like in the one, like, oh, I'm going to get this rose quartz and put it in my bra, and I'm all healed up. Like, what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on just putting on that crystal beaded bracelet and calling it kosh?
Well, it's kind of like anything else when it comes to doing this line of work. If you go to a session, a Reiki session or an energy session or whatever with a practitioner, and they pass on a message and you don't do anything with that, it's like, of course you have free will, don't feel like you have to do anything, but for your own sake of progress, if they call out something that you know within yourself, oh shit, I need to tackle that next, don't I? And you don't do it, then you're not progressing, right, on what you're supposed to. But if you choose to do that, then that's different. You're taking the next step along what you're supposed to be working on. So with anything, for crystals, if you pick up a piece of rose quartz and you're like, oh, this feels so great, and you know the meaning behind it, you know the self-love that's behind it, and you're struggling with that, simply carrying it in your pocket or putting it in your bra or looking at it every morning on your dresser before you go into work is not going to cut it. You have to recognize, okay, what is this stone reminding me of? Well, okay, I need to really take some time to give myself self-love, or I need to recognize my own worth, or I need to give myself compassion as much as I give others compassion. Does that make sense?
Mindfulness, absolutely
Mhm.
it does.
It
It's about all things in life are about slowing down and being mindful. We need to get away from mindlessly consuming, I guess,
Mhm.
all
Yes.
things, whether it's food or sex or alcohol or
TV.
people's time, anything. Slow down.
Well, and I see a lot of correlation between the crystal's not the band-aid, and it's not going to be, you can't program it enough to be just that quick fix, especially with people who are exasperated with the let's say the medical field, and it's just like, I'm not getting anywhere, and so they make a switch to alternative medicines, and then all of a sudden they're like, all the oils, all the crystals, all the things, and at some point there has to be an internal shift of doing the work, the soul work that matches, then the crystal will be like, okay, here, now you're aligning with this, and bam, we're tag teaming this. And it's like
Right.
co-creating with that
Mhm.
energy.
Right.
Just simply having it, it's almost just like popping pills because the doctor prescribes you this. And by all means, take your medicines. Do not, I'm never going to be one for that's like all holistic only. It's a team effort on both ends if that's what you need. But there's some rash decisions with crystals I see in a lot of ways where people are like, oh, I'm cutting off all my medication and I'm doing oils in the crystals, and it's just because the crystal holds that vibration. Sometimes it's not going to resonate. You have to be on that same. It's like you're on two different freeways and they're just zooming by with that vibration. And if you're not on that same road or in that same vehicle, you're not gaining that benefit.
Right. I like that.
Mhm.
Also, like, so we kind of veered off a little bit. There are some instances where you do maybe want to cleanse your crystals, right? They do hold and gather. A lot of them will gather the energy. Is there any more we wanted to mention on that? So at some point, or when a crystal breaks is a good example. It's taken on too much, but
Yeah.
is there any more we needed to dive into that before?
I just believe that the crystal is going to transmute the energy, and when it's done, you'll know. I believe that it draws from Mother Earth, and it has a constant source of energy. It never runs out of battery. It's like the ultimate Bluetooth device, that it's continually pulsing and continually in tune with what's happening in Gaia, and specifically with its own resonance. So I don't cleanse or charge any crystal. Dun, dun, dun.
That's a neat way to look at it, though, because it kind of makes them seem like they're antennae that belong to the earth, and they just kind of continue to maintain the frequency from source. I think there's nothing wrong with maintenance if that's what feels right to you. If you have a stringed instrument like a guitar or a violin, you have to replace the strings at some point. You have to take care of the fretboard. You have to take care of the bow. And you have to make sure that the wood is in good condition. So maintenance is good if that's what it needs. And also listen to your stone. If it's telling you, yo, I took on a lot this week, can you please give me a bath? Run it under some water.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can program and they can contain information, especially like when you take a look at crystal singing bowls and how they were developed. And originally they were created for the computer industry because they were used to store computer parts, and then people realized that they made sound, and so that's how we have crystal singing bowls nowadays. And there was a doctor.
Cool.
You just blew my mind. That is
Yes.
so.
And there was a doctor several years ago. He has passed away since, but Mitchell Gaynor worked with cancer patients who were going through treatments, radiation and a treatment program based on what they needed. And he would have the patients put their drinking water into the crystal bowls, and they would program the water while playing the bowl. So using their intention, right, their prayers, their thoughts, putting that frequency into the water, and then they would drink that water as part of their treatment program, and it was beneficial. So we know scientifically that they can store information and program. And again, if that's what feels right to you, is to maintain your crystal and kind of clear stuff out every now and then go for it.
Yeah, no shame in this game. I don't think that, and I kind of mentioned this to you gals, but I don't think that our 3D brains can wrap around the idea of not having to do anything to a crystal. I think that we are physical beings, and that is how we are programmed. That's the side where I come from, is that I just truly believe there is nothing you could do to a plant or an animal or a crystal to enhance it in any way, shape, or form, because they're already perfect. The only reason we are not perfect is because we're here for, to have that human experience and the social piece of it.
We're tactile, and like Jen said, there's something revealing about you becoming a caretaker of something that is very revealing in and of itself. whether it's a plant or a crystal or a kitty cat.
Or your body. I have big thoughts on the physical vessel, obviously, but I can imagine that being one of the greatest responsibilities of an incarnated being is physical vessel. If I can't take care of a physical vessel, how can I achieve all of these wonderful, massive things in the nebulous mass that is non-physical energy, you know?
Yeah. I think we tackled it, guys. This is great.
I think so too. How do you follow up with that? That was awesome.
I know, right? Okay, well, and cut.
Let's just close it up then. And again, we are always looking forward to hearing from anyone who has questions, thoughts, differing opinions, different training. You know something that we don't? Great. Share it, because that's what we're doing. We're learning right along with all of you. So make sure you send us that email, put the comment on the thread, whatever it is that is sharing your opinion. And if you are interested in finding us on Instagram, we have Facebook, right? And then the email is quantumcoalescence@gmail.com. So make sure you get a hold of us. And next week we are talking about tools, right? Maybe just talk about how many tools are too many tools.
Ooh.
I'm seeing some red face. You guys can't see this right now, but I'm seeing some red faces on my tribe here. So that will prove to be, I'm sure, an interesting topic of conversation. So make sure you join us for that. And we appreciate your time and sharing this space with us. And thank you.